from Lagos, the nation's commercial capital. This is the News at 10. Live from Channels Television. Reporting tonight, Millicent Walker.
Tonight, in a landmark judgment, Supreme Court declares presidential order giving financial autonomy to the judiciary and legislature unlawful and unconstitutional. Months after holding public hearings on the 1999 Constitution amendments across the country, members of Joint Senate and House of Representatives Committee meet with speakers of the 36 state houses of assembly to get their buy-in. Police Service Commission issues 2-week deadline to the police hierarchy to conclude its investigation into the case of the suspended Deputy Commissioner of Police Abba Kyari over his involvement connected with convicted fraudster Hush Puppy. And Britain, the United States and a host of other countries asked their nationals to leave Ukraine amid warnings of a Russian invasion. Plus other international news from our studio in London.
On business news tonight, economic think tank Financial Derivatives Company sees Nigeria's headline inflation rising further to 15.86% in January, ahead of official data from the National Bureau of Statistics next week.
On sports news tonight, Nigeria's The Tigress are just a game away from winning a ticket for the FIFA Women Basketball World Cup following a 67-65 win over France at the qualifying tournament in Belgrade.
And from Abuja, President Buhari directs ministers and heads of agencies to include young people with requisite skills and experience in all boards and committees of the federal government. Promises to support young persons vying for positions in the APC's February 26 convention.
Executive Order 10, which grants financial autonomy to the judiciary and the legislature in the 36 states of the Federation, is now null and void. With a tone of finality, the nation's apex court today pronounced the law, which was signed into law in May 2020, as unlawful and unconstitutional. In a split decision of 6 justices to 1, the Supreme Court held that the Executive Order 10 was inconsistent with the 1999 Constitution as amended.
The decision of the Supreme Court has put to rest issues surrounding the funding of lower courts in states, the Executive Order 10 of President Muhammadu Buhari, and the 66 billion naira state governors are asking as a refund for capital projects in their states. 6 justices, led by Justice Mohammed Datijo, agreed that the contentious Executive Order 10 violates the provisions of the 1999 Constitution, which clearly stipulates the functions and powers of heads of each arm of the government. The panel also agrees that the president exceeded his constitutional powers in issuing the executive order. Similarly, 4 of the 7-man panel of justices turned down the request of the 36 state governors for an order of the apex court to compel the federal government to take up funding of capital projects for state high courts, Sharia Court of Appeal and the Customary Court of Appeal. They upheld the arguments of the AGF Abubakar Malami, Mahmoud Magaji and Musibao Adetumbi to the effect that capital projects for the 3 courts should be funded by the states and not the federal government. Parties in the suit explained the implications of the judgment.
What it means is that regarding the issue of funding and reimbursement of expenses and expenditure and budgetary provisions by the state governments, they will continue to fund and fund the judiciary, the state high courts, the Sharia Courts of Appeal and the Customary Court of Appeal.
States are to continue to finance their both capital and recurrent. Just like we said then, salaries to be paid by NGC. But concerning recurrent and capital, Supreme Court by a majority decision, 4-3, they have said no. It is still your duty to do it.
Attorney General of Abia State, on behalf of 35 others, had taken the Attorney General of the Federation before the Supreme Court, praying for an order to compel the federal government to take up funding of capital projects for the three courts on the ground that they are the courts of the Federation, and as such, the funding of their capital project should flow from the Consolidated Revenue Fund of the Federation.
Meanwhile, the Executive Order 10, which was nullified by the Supreme Court today, has been a contentious one from day one, pitching the presidency against the state government. President Muhammadu Buhari had relied on Section 5 of the 1999 Constitution to sign the executive order, which has now been rendered illegal and unconstitutional. Our State House correspondent, Gloria Mezuke, provides a background to what is the Executive Order 10.
On May 22, 2020, a statement from the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation announced that President Muhammadu Buhari has signed the Executive Order 10 for the implementation of financial autonomy for state legislature and state judiciary. The president's action was also announced through a tweet via his official handle, which stated that based on the power vested in me under Section 5 of the 1999 Constitution as amended, I today signed into law Executive Order 10 of 2020 for the implementation of financial autonomy of state legislature and state judiciary. The idea of the order, according to the tweet, is to strengthen the institutions at the state tier of government and make them more independent and accountable in line with the tenets of democracy as enshrined by the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended. A presidential implementation committee was then constituted to work out modality for the implementation of financial autonomy for the state's legislature and judiciary. The order empowers the Accountants General of the Federation to deduct funds for the state's legislature and judiciary from the Federation allocations to the state. Following the non-implementation of the order, parliamentary and judiciary workers expressed their displeasure over the inaction. Courts were shut down while the parliamentary workers protested in front of the National Assembly gate. The industrial action by the two unions led to several meetings of the Nigerian Governors Forum. The Nigerian governors had earlier found loopholes with the order, arguing that the implementation of such autonomy does not require a fiat by the president, who they say has been ill-advised by the Attorney General of the Federation to sign an executive order that undermines the powers of governors and offends the principle of separation of powers. However, the state governors, through their attorneys general, filed a suit on September 17, 2020, contending the constitutionality of the executive order. The outcome of the suit is a nullification of the Executive Order 10. The president has since 2018 signed other executive orders, including the Executive Order Number 5 for the development of local content in science, engineering, and technology. From the presidential villa, Gloria Umezuke, Channels Television News.
And former Minister of Water Resources and former Deputy Governor of Sokoto State, Alhaji Mukhtar Shagari, has been reacting to the Supreme Court judgment which declared President Buhari's Executive Order 10 as unconstitutional. He feels strongly that state governments must make the judiciary feel independent with the latitude to pass judgment without interference or fear of being victimized. You're speaking on our political program, Politics Today.
And this is the way all governors should behave. Make the judiciary feel independent, feel free, and have the latitude to be able to pass judgments without interference from anybody and without the fear that they will be, well, in fact, victimized. I think that the federal government should go back to the Supreme Court and ask the Supreme Court to look at this judgment today and change it. Our judiciary must be independent. Our judiciary must have the latitude to be able to pass judgments without fear or favor. Our judiciary must not go to the chief executive of any state to look for money. They must have their own money and they must run their own affairs. I feel that the Constitution must be amended to make it so clear, that the judiciary must be funded independent of either the federal government or independent of the state government. I actually believe that the Supreme Court made a judgment based on what they think the interpretation of the law should be. Nobody is blaming the Supreme Court, but we feel that for us to have an independent judiciary where the rule of law will be the order of the day, the Constitution of this country must be amended to make it so clear to everybody that this is where it stands as far as the funding of judiciary is concerned.
Well, to other stories, the Deputy President of Senate, Senator Ovie Omoagege, is seeking the cooperation of state assemblies in ensuring the acceptance of the amendment of the 1999 Constitution. According to him, all legislators at all levels must agree to the need for the review, irrespective of their political leanings, as the objective is in the overall interest of Nigerians. Senator Omoagege was speaking at a joint Senate and House of Representatives committee meeting on constitution review with speakers of the 36 state houses of assembly in Abuja.
A few months after holding public hearings on the Constitution amendment across the country, members of the Joint Senate and House of Representatives Committee are meeting with speakers of the 36 state houses of assembly to get their buy-in on the amendment. The Constitution amendment is seeking to address issues of local government autonomy, the legislature, state police, devolution of powers, good governance, political parties, national security, and electoral matters, among others. Both the Deputy Senate President and the Deputy Speaker of the House of Representatives appealed to the lawmakers from the state to lobby their constituents to accept the proposed amendments.
The proposed amendments in the bills we have shared with you set out institutional and legal reforms, which, together with sufficient political will help to strengthen institutions of governance, provide for accountability and transparency in governance, and create an independent judicial system that will ensure effective administration of justice in Nigeria.
The need and importance of reviewing our extant constitution cannot be overemphasized, as a vast majority of Nigerians consider the 1999 constitution a product of the military exigencies, and a lot of Nigerians have therefore yearned for a crucial review.
Some of the objectives of the proposed amendment include strengthening institutions, creating an independent judiciary, and ensuring transparency and accountability. Legislators at the state level agree on the need for the amendments.
The Conference of Speakers subscribes to the call that the review of the Constitution is one of the legislative actions at our disposal that could be exploited to address these challenges. We therefore call on both the distinguished members of the National Assembly and the State House of Assembly to take this opportunity of yet another alteration exercise to address many agitated issues.
Irrespective of whatever agreement is reached between the speakers and the leadership of the National Assembly, they still have to secure the buy-in of their colleagues at the state level for the Constitution amendment to become a success.
And the Police Service Commission has asked the police hierarchy to redouble its efforts and ensure that investigation into the case of the suspended Deputy Commissioner of Police, Abba Kyari, over his involvement with convicted fraudster Hush Puppy is concluded within 2 weeks. The Commission is also in favour of a separate investigation to be carried out by a different panel. The Police Service Commission took this decision at the continuation of its 14th plenary meeting today in Abuja. A report by the Federal Bureau of Investigation of the United States of America had indicted him in the case of fraud involving Instagram celebrity Ramon Abbas, otherwise called Hush Puppy. In part two, after the break, President Buhari directs ministers and heads of agencies to include young people with requisite skills and experience in all boards and committees of the federal government. Promises to support young persons vying for positions in APC's February 26th convention. To join us again. Welcome back. If you just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 live on Channels Television Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. Supreme Court declares presidential order giving financial autonomy to the judiciary and legislature unlawful and unconstitutional. Members of the Joint Senate and House of Representatives Committee meet with speakers of the 36 state houses of assembly to get their buy-in months after holding public hearings on the 1999 Constitution Amendment across the country. Police Service Commission issues 2-week deadline to the police hierarchy to conclude its investigation into the case of the suspended Deputy Commissioner of Police, Abba Kyari, over his involvement with convicted fraudster Hush Puppy. And Britain, the United States and a host of other countries asked their nationals to leave Ukraine amid warnings of a Russian invasion. And President Muhammadu Buhari has directed ministers and heads of agencies to include young people with the requisite skills and experience in all boards and committees of the federal government. The president also says he will support the aspirations of credible and committed young people who are vying for positions in the February 26th National Convention of the All Progressives Congress. The president gave the assurance while receiving members of the All Progressives Congress National Youth Lobby Group at the presidential villa.
In furtherance of strengthening youth involvement in governance and politics, I hereby mandate the SGF and Chief of Staff to undertake the following activities. A. Ensure monthly engagements with the APC Youth Lobby Group for better synergy and cross-pollination of ideas and opportunities. Explore the establishment of a committee of young people to form the monitoring and evaluation team of our projects across the country to give us feedback and enable us hold those given responsibility to account. Ensure that all ministers and heads of agencies include young people with the requisite skills and experience in all committees and boards to encourage learning and mentoring in government. Explore the establishment of a presidential committee on youth in liaison with the youth leader in fulfillment of my promise to the young members of our party last year. The leadership of the APC will ensure full participation of young people at all levels. I will also support the aspirations of credible and committed young people who are vying for positions in the upcoming convention.
Nigeria's President Muhammadu Buhari. And now I hand over to Terry Kumi, who is in Abuja studios with more stories. Hi, Terry.
Hello, Millicent. Now, presidential hopefuls are continuing their consultations ahead of the 2023 presidential election. An aspirant under the platform of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Mr. Samuel Huabua, was in Minna, the Niger state capital, earlier today to consult with members of the PDP. He told journalists that poverty is a major challenge to the worsening insecurity and socio-economic problem in the country.
I have been motivated to present myself to Nigeria as a possible president of the country, and I have done so because I feel that I have the competence, I feel that I have the experience, I feel that I have a vision which will help Nigeria realize its manifest destiny. I feel that I have the courage to do what is right. I feel I have the character to lead Nigeria on the path of righteousness so that we can do what pleases God and what is good for all of us. Now, in presenting myself, I am not presenting myself because it is zone to A or zone to B. No. I am presenting myself, and I've told people that I'm going to run for president for Nigeria. It doesn't matter which zone, it is zone 2. We're not inferior to anybody. We are created by the same God, and He's been kind to us, extraordinarily kind to Nigeria, in terms of natural endowment, in terms of the kind of people that we have in this place. You know, very smart people, but we have failed collectively to realize the potential. They've been saying Nigeria is a potentially great country. I am coming to make it truly great, not potentially, and that's why I am, and I'm up to it.
Now, before his visits to the PDP Secretariat in Minna, Mr. Samuel Huabua was at the hilltop mansion of the former military president, General Ibrahim Babangida, where both of them met behind closed doors. The FCT Police Command has relaxed its decision to restrict all movements during the area council elections on Saturday. A statement by the police public relations officer, Josephine Ade, a deputy commissioner of police, says members of the public are free to go about their normal, legitimate business without the fear of harassment or molestation of any kind from any quarters. The command had earlier made a pronouncement on restriction of movement between 12 midnight and 4 p.m. on Saturday to ensure adequate security. Now, it's less than 24 hours to the area council elections in the Federal Capital Territory, and members of the civil society organization in Abuja are appealing to citizens to turn out en masse to cast their votes. Members of Yaga Africa, a frontline civil society organization in Abuja, took their sensitization to Kuje Market, where they urged the electorate to shun violence and vote buying as well as selling during the Saturday area council elections. It is less than 24 hours to the Federal Capital Territory Area Council elections, and Yaga Africa, a civil society organization in Nigeria, is reaching out to traders in Kuje Market to sensitize them on the need to come out en masse to vote. The objective is to prevent an anticipated voter apathy as well as vote selling and buying on Saturday.
Tomorrow, the FCT Federal Capital Territory Council election go hold for the 6 local governments. It starts by 8:30 in the morning. If you get your PVC, the one where you don't collect since 2011 is still there valid.
Please, women, wake up. Wake up, you should go and vote. Vote not because of any tokenism. Vote because you feel they can deliver. Anybody that can deliver should be the one to be voted for.
Beyond the sensitization, the group also has this demand for the Independent National Electoral Commission, INEC.
INEC should ensure early deployment of its personnel and materials to polling units to enable early commencement of polls. Number 2, in a bid to ensure transparency, INEC should publish the permanent voters card PVC rates as it had initially promised to do before the elections.
The group then proceeds with the sharing of handbills to the traders, educating them on the need to participate actively in Saturday's election.
I pray that the election, everybody will come out in mass, vote your choice of candidates.
If you want to vote, just vote what you want to vote. Don't do fighting. just your voting is your right now. Just what you want to vote is to do fighting for the people, in front of the people. No good. That one is no good at all.
The FCT Area Council election is scheduled to hold in 68 wards of the 6 area councils of the FCT. 473 candidates from 14 political parties are participating in the elections. Well, that's all from the nation's capital. Back to you, Millicent.
Thanks, Terry. Well, we continue with the area council election in the Federal Capital Territory. It is the only local government election that is conducted by the Independent National Electoral Commission. Now, this election, which will hold across the 6 area councils in the nation's capital, affords the Commission the opportunity to assess its preparedness for the conduct of the 2023 general election.
On Saturday, February 12, 2022, residents of the nation's capital will determine the chairman and councillors in the 6 area councils of the Federal Capital Territory. The election is the first to be conducted by Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) in 2022, and the first since the Anambra governorship elections. The election affords the electoral body an opportunity to correct some of the observations identified during the Anambra governorship election.
And you can see, judging from the lessons of Anambra, where the BVAS was deployed and we saw the challenges, and INEC has assured that it has rectified all the challenges and is deploying the BVAS for this election. It makes this election very important because for civil society and citizens, we'll be watching to see if INEC has perfected the deployment of the technology for electronic accreditation.
The electoral body will be deploying the bimodal voter accreditation system BVAS for the exercise, as INEC believes that the elections will be an example for a peaceful and credible elections in 2023.
The 2022 area council election be the beacon for a peaceful and credible 2023 general election.
Of the 473 candidates vying for chairmanship and councillorship positions, only 11 of them are women, and civil society organizations have urged political parties to increase the participation of women for the Ekiti and Osun elections this year and the general elections next year.
In this election, we have only 11 women who are candidates in the election, just 3 are chairmanship. And we hope that we will see an improvement towards the next elections, that political parties will learn from these elections and have more women in the next elections in Ekiti, Osun, and in general elections in 2023.
The area council election is scheduled to hold in 68 wards of the 6 area councils of the FCT.
Still ahead on the news at 10, economic think tank Financial Derivatives Company sees Nigeria's headline inflation rising further to 15.86% in January, ahead of official data from the National Bureau of Statistics next week. That's some business news. To join us again. To security, the police in Katsina State says it has neutralized 5 terrorists and arrested 11 suspects in connection with terrorism, theft and other related crimes. This was disclosed by the police spokesperson Gambo Issa today during a press briefing held at the command headquarters, Katsina State. Mr. Gambo added that the terrorists were ambushed as they attacked Kuru village in Matazu local government area of the state.
Katsina State Police Command repelled terrorist attack at Kuru and Dangani villages, both of Musawa and Matazu local government areas of Katsina State. Recovered 1 AK-47 rifle with 7 rounds of 7.62 mm ammunition. Neutralized 5 terrorists. Rescued 1 kidnapped victim and recovered 1 motor vehicle Golf 3, white in color, with also recovered 81 cows 64 sheep, and a donkey. Similarly, on the same day at about 0400 hours, while the team was responding to another distress call, they had an encounter with another group of terrorists near Dangani town, Musawa local government area, that kidnapped one Alhaji Sule, male aged 62 years.
Away from security, the Vice President, Professor Yemi Osinbajo, says the Economic Sustainability Social Housing Programme of the federal government has delivered 19,478 units out of its target of 300,000 units. Professor Osinbajo made this known at the commissioning of 248 units in Masaka, Nasarawa State. The Vice President maintains that the regime remains determined in its vision to build a nation where low-income earners have the dignity of a decent home and livelihood. The Vice President added that while the challenge of inadequate or no housing undermines the quality of life of many Nigerians on a low income, it also denies the economy and therefore the collective welfare, the growth that is possible through a vibrant housing market. And to the story of the week, the off-specification petrol. The management of Britannia U Nigeria Limited has exonerated the company from the ongoing controversy over the off-spec premium motor spirit in the country, saying the consortium product that arrived and discharged during 4th to 19th January 2022 through 5 daughter vessels, which were duly certified as meeting NNPC product specifications. A statement by the management of the company says it is aware of the publication by the Emadeb Hyde McAfee consortium partners and affirmed that what they stated does not relate to the issues at hand. The statement adds that Britannia U's record in the oil and gas industry, which covers the entire spectrum of upstream, midstream and downstream, is impeccable, adding that the company was amongst the first 24 indigenous oil and gas companies that started the petroleum importation business under the Petroleum Support Fund, PSF, in 2008, which saw Britannia U importing products for international oil companies such as Total Nigeria PLC, Mobil Oil Nigeria PLC, some independents, and the defunct PPPRA. And in a similar development, O&O PLC says it did not import adulterated premium motor spirit into the country, in contrast to what the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited said on the matter. In a statement released to the Nigerian Exchange Limited, O&O said, following media reports listing O&O as one of 4 importers that supplied methanol-blended premium motor spirit into the country, we hereby state that O&O did not import and supply PMS that was adulterated or substandard. According to O&O, we want to assure the public that O&O, as a responsible corporate citizen, will not partake in the importation, distribution or marketing of substandard petroleum products. Meanwhile, the petroleum tanker driver section of the Nigerian Union Petroleum and Natural Gas Workers, NUPENG, has raised the alarm that the 621 billion naira provided by the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited for rehabilitation of 21 critical roads across the country has been hijacked by some state governors and politicians. The national chairman of the Tanker Drivers Union told journalists in Abuja that over 3 months after it reached an agreement with the NNPC for the rehabilitation of the roads, no work has taken place.
You will all recall that at the end of the quarterly branch Executive Council meeting of petroleum tanker drivers held at PTD House, Eneme, Enugu, on 25th of September 2021, the union issued a firm and decisive ultimatum on the deplorable state of federal highways and the painful experiences of our members while carrying out their duty across the country. These 2 meetings resulted into signing of communique indicating the readiness and willingness of NNPC to finance the rehabilitation of identified 21 critical roads at an estimated sum of 621 billion through road infrastructure tax credit scheme. On the basis of this communique, we suspended the intended industrial action, but with a very clear warning that should the spirit and the letter of the agreement not fully implemented with focus on those jointly identified critical routes, the union will not hesitate to resume the intended action without further warning.
And to some company news, 3 customers of Henkel Nigeria, makers of WOW detergent, have been rewarded with 1 million naira each. While presenting the prize to the winners, the chairman and managing director of the company, Mr. Rajat Kapoor, said the gesture is an appreciation of their loyalty to the brand. He promised to continue to put customers at the center of all activities, innovation and product.
Give them a round of applause.
Expand Global Industries Limited, also known as Henkel Nigeria, is the maker of WOW detergent,
Gets a lot of clothes clean and fresh. Wow!
which since its entrance into the Nigerian market has introduced 2 variants, WOW Classic and WOW Color. Following its launch in 2016, the company's management is excited about the support it has enjoyed from its Nigerian customers.
Today we are in millions of households. And while we are experiencing this love of the consumers, it's also important to kind of keep in mind we are investing heavily at the social infrastructure, the commercial infrastructure, the industrial infrastructure to really bolster the economy of Nigeria itself.
WOW Wash and Win Millions promo. Millions of naira. Daily
One of its ways of celebrating and appreciating consumers is the introduction of the Wash and Win promo in July of 2021. After the promo, which lasted till January of 2022, more than 400,000 entries are recorded, with over 23,000 consumers getting rewarded with different prizes. 3 entries get the grand prize of 1 million naira each after a draw. Beyond the money, the winners give thumbs up to the company and its products, promising to spread the good news.
Wow, I've used it to wash my white. It removes stains. Then the colored one, I use it to wash my colored clothes and my Ankara. It doesn't remove the color.
For the past 4 to 5 years, I've been using WOW product. And it's all about accessibility, affordability, and effectiveness.
These customers and others across the country are asked to look forward to more innovation-driven products.
Since we have come onto the ground, we have brought new technologies like WOW Color, which has patented technologies which take care of the things. We have brought back detergent consumer promotions. It's something that at least in the last 3.5, 4 years, I'm not aware of something similar being done in this category itself. So we are a German organization. We pride ourselves in innovation.
Both variants of the WOW detergent come in 200 and 900 grams, as well as 25-gram sachets.
And to some more business stories, here's Teniola Shubowale.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial *894# now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thanks a lot, Millicent. Welcome to Business News. Nigeria's headline inflation rate for January is expected to trend higher to 15.86%, and this is according to latest projection by economic think tank Financial Derivatives Company. In its latest forecast for the country's inflation, FDC says the figure would mark a 0.23% additional consecutive increase from the 15.63% uptick recorded in December 2021, which came after after 7 consecutive months of decline. FDC credits the higher inflation outlook to the depreciated value of the naira, which is having a cross-elasticity effect on local commodities, excess naira liquidity, and increase in the price of imported commodities. Meanwhile, the National Bureau of Statistics is expected to release the official inflation report next week on February the 15th. Nigeria's central bank has appointed New York-based sustainability, digital, energy and infrastructure investor Kemi Christina Abdul to serve on the board of directors of its infrastructure and industrial vehicle Infracore. Before joining Infracore's board, Mrs. Kemi, who is the managing director for Blue Heaven in New York, has worked in various capacities as Credit Suisse Manhole Development Company and was a member of the board of directors for Georgetown Real Estate Company. The Infrastructure Corporation of Nigeria Limited is a world-class and privately managed institution created by the CBN to catalyze and accelerate investment into the country's infrastructure sector. And outside our shores, the International Energy Agency says Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates could help to calm volatile global oil markets if they pumped more crude. In its monthly report released today, the Paris-based Energy Agency said the two oil producers have the most spare production capacity, which could help to relieve dwindling global oil inventories that contributed to prices pushing towards $100 a barrel, deepening inflation worldwide. Meanwhile, oil prices traded higher today with international benchmark Brent crude up by 3.3% to settle at $94.44 per barrel after reaching $95 at one point, while its contemporary and U.S. oil benchmark West Texas Intermediate crude futures was up more than 5% to $94.66 per barrel, its highest level since September the 30th, 2014, amid escalating tensions between Ukraine and Russia. And one of the world's biggest cryptocurrency firms, Binance, says it plans to acquire a $200 million or £147.6 million stake in billionaires ranking media brand Forbes. In a statement announcing the investment, Binance founder Changpeng Zhao said he saw media as an essential element to build widespread consumer understanding and education of the crypto market and emerging blockchain technologies. 105-year-old media, known for its ranking of world's richest personalities, said the deal would help make it a leader supplying information about digital assets like Bitcoin. On its part, Forbes and Binance, which has faced scrutiny from regulators in the US, UK and elsewhere, would provide technology advice, helping the business publication maximize its brand and advance plans to convert readers to paying subscribers. And back home, Nigeria's stock market ends Friday's trading session in the red as oil sell pressure on some high-value bank as well as oil and gas stocks takes toll on the market. Will Ibong has the details.
Hello and welcome to the Stock Market Report. I guess we were too quick to put on the party hats yesterday. The NGX was not able to hold on to yesterday's positive performance as the all-share index dipped by 0.18%, knocking about 45 billion naira off the market cap. The gains recorded by big names MTN, Lafarge and UAC were not enough to cushion the shock to the index caused by the fugaz, and that's the tier 1 banks and some other components in the consumer and oil and gas sectors. This pullback weighed heavily on some of the key indexes. The drop in the fugaz stocks caused a 0.95% decline on the banking index, while the oil and gas index fell nearly 1%, triggered largely by the loss in Seplat Energies. Now, Seplat lost 16 naira off his share price today. Huge, right? Now, moving to top trades, we see Access Bank in the lead, and that's still a result of the sell pressure it experienced in today's session. Meanwhile, Guinness is still trending on the top gainers list and adding another 5 naira 50 kobo today to his share price to close at 16 naira 50 kobo. We're still seeing a lot of earnings-induced volatility in the markets, and that's rightly expected. Positive sentiment still trailing activities. We can only hope that this is sustained in the market next week. And that's the stock market report. And Will Ibang is back to you.
Thanks a lot, Will. Meanwhile, let's find out how other major global stock markets ended their trading session for the day. And that's business news tonight. It's back to Millicent for the rest of the news at 10.
Banking, so easy, so simple. Dial star 894 hash now to experience it. You first, First Bank.
Thank you, Teniola. And here's an update on the Federal Capital Territory municipal elections holding across the FCT tomorrow. The police says the credible intelligence available to it shows that criminals are planning to explore the absence of restrictions of movement earlier announced to disrupt the peaceful conduct of the elections. Accordingly, the FCT police has now announced a restriction of all movement from 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. tomorrow, Saturday, the 12th of February. This is to enable eligible voters exercise their civic responsibility. Only those in essential services will be allowed. The United States says Russia has the troops in place to invade Ukraine at any time, and American citizens should leave within the next 48 hours. The UK, the Netherlands, Japan, South Korea and Latvia have also warned their citizens. For more international news, here's Simon Pusey with Around the World in 5.
Good evening and welcome to the Channel Studios here in London with your international news around the world in 5. The Kremlin has confirmed that French President Emmanuel Macron refused a Russian COVID test ahead of his meeting with Russia's President Vladimir Putin. The photo of the pair at either end of an enormous table in the Kremlin went viral online earlier this week. However, sources say the local COVID test that was required was unacceptable and did not fit the French leader's schedule. It follows reports that Mr. Macron refused the PCR test over fears the Russians would get hold of his DNA. They did not shake hands and instead sat either end of a 4-meter-long table between them. Iran's president says he never pins hope on ongoing talks in Vienna aimed at reviving the country's 2015 nuclear agreement with world powers. Ebrahim Raisi, whose election last June led to a 5-month hiatus in the talks, said Iran would rely on its domestic economic potential rather than expect support from overseas. Iran and the United States resumed indirect talks in the Austrian capital on Tuesday, but envoys gave little away as to whether they were closer to resolving various issues. A so-called French freedom convoy of trucks, tractors and cars has been greeted with cheers in the southwest city of Lyon on Friday morning. People waved French flags as the convoy drove through with horns blaring. Fireworks were set off in the air above crowds of people singing and dancing. It's as convoys from all over France plan to converge on Paris and Brussels to demand an end to COVID-19 restrictions. At least 111 people in Madagascar are now known to have died since cyclone Batsirai hit the Indian Ocean island nearly a week ago. Many homes simply crumpled in the ferocious winds, leaving around 30,000 people living in emergency shelters. This drone footage shows the extent of the damage in the coastal city of Mananjare. 87 of the 111 deaths resulting from Cyclone Batsirai were in the southeastern district of Ikongo. The South Africa President's annual State of the Nation address lasted longer than usual, perhaps because it was packed full of something to appease everyone.
If there is one thing we all agree...
It comes at a time when Cyril Ramaphosa's government is under pressure from all angles after a series of crises. His address included old commitments, including economic reforms and handling the energy shortages that has caused blackouts.
In our country, I announced
He also promised that his government would work on industrialising the hemp and cannabis industry, which could create more than 130,000 jobs. Moroccan authorities have decided to survey all abandoned wells across the country after a trapped boy died despite an unsuccessful rescue attempt last week. 5-year-old Rayan, who fell down a narrow 32-metre deep borehole, gripped millions in Morocco and beyond. A water ministry official said the survey was designed to prevent a repeat of the tragedy. More than 1,000 Moroccans a year are already being punished for illegal drilling. It's emerged that a 15-year-old Russian figure skating star who helped her team win Winter Olympic gold in Beijing failed a drugs test back in December. Kamila Valieva, here training on the ice earlier today, was the first female skater to land a quadruple jump in the competition as her team won last Monday. However, her positive test result that was recorded in December was only reported on Tuesday, the day after she helped her team win gold, but before the medal ceremony had taken place. A series of appeals means this case will now be taken to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. And finally, a rather novel way to celebrate Valentine's Day. A zoo in the UK is offering people the unique opportunity to name a cockroach after their ex or someone they don't like to mark the day. For a small donation, people will receive a certificate and have their chosen person added to the roach board. Former and current British Prime Ministers David Cameron and Boris Johnson are already both on the board. Money raised will fund conservation projects at the zoo.
It's a good way to have a little giggle to yourself or with your friends, but also we're saying if you wanted a name after a politician maybe this year, then you're more than welcome to. All names are welcome, and it's all to raise money for projects that we're doing here at the zoo and helping us care for all the animals here.
And that's your international news around the world in 5. Now back to the Channel studios in Lagos.
Thank you, Simon, and welcome to Sports News. The Tigress are a game away from booking a ticket for the FIBA Women's Basketball World Cup in Sydney following a 67-65 win over France in the qualifying tournament in Belgrade. Led by Victoria Macaulay with 19 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists and 5 steals, the Tigress showed resilience, having lost the first quarter 11-28. They stepped up in the second quarter with a 16-10 win and never looked back, claiming the third 21-14 and the final quarter 19-13. Nigeria will face Mali in the final group game on Sunday. And it's Game, Set and Match on Sports News. It's back to Millicent with the wrap-up of the news at 10.
Thanks, Victor. And the main news again. In a landmark judgment today, the Supreme Court declared a presidential order giving financial autonomy to the judiciary and legislature unlawful and unconstitutional. That's the news at 10 tonight. Thank you for watching. I'm Millicent Moraka. Have a good night. Stay safe.